So, good evening, everybody. We continue in chapter 41. Yes, the lengthier chapter, as we mentioned a few times, and we're about two-thirds into the chapter. The original text in Tanya is 114, page 114. You can see it on the as well corresponding English text accordingly. And we're holding towards the end of this page, with Alter Rebbe in the words of Af Shliyes Kavana Zu Amitis Belibei Shili B'Chafetz Be'emes Yichud Ha'elin Hazeh. Which Alter Rebbe begins and says, even for one to have this kavana, this intent, this intention, and this should be true, altruistic in his heart, that his heart should truly want this supreme oneness and unity, he has to have a unique and special love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what is the Alter Rebbe referring to? What is the unity or this kavana, this special intent, this special intention when he's doing the mitzvah, when he's performing the mitzvah, when he's executing the mitzvah, or is learning Torah, giving tzedakah, which is also the most important mitzvahs. What is this about this unity? So we actually naturally took the time last week to explain l'shem yichud. For that matter, when he speaks about, understandably speaks about this unity, speaks about what he mentioned before, which is the last. This is what we covered in the last class of this which we recite, the l'shem yichud kuchabrichu shchinte. It's about the oneness, the unity of the kuchabrichu and the Shechina. What is that supposed to mean? Apparently, kuchabrichu is a term for Hashem, God. Shechina is a term for Hashem, God. What does it mean? They need to unite, and what does it mean that through my mitzvah I'm going to unite these two, the kuchabrichu and the Shechinte? What is that supposed to mean? Is there, as we asked the question last week, it seems like the two forces, they're in a state of disunity, they're in a state of quarrel, and we got to unite them. No, obviously it doesn't mean that. But we elaborated on this in the previous class, and that it's two dimensions within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's one Hashem, just like Havdil, Elef Havdalis. When you look at man, there's different ways that man himself expresses himself or herself with his superior faculties and inferior faculties. Inferior expressions and superior expressions. So too with Hashem, there's that unique level of kuchabrichu, and then the Shechinte, the way he invests, involves himself. And again, I need not to elaborate. We spoke about this in length, for that matter, that we covered, and namely the previous class, which is up on the site at the tanyaonline.com website, where you can not only follow the class, but you can follow the class with the text. It's organized also, you need not to, it doesn't compromise the screen, the moving up and down the screen. It's a separate scroll bar, which you have the text on this screen itself, and similarly you have all the previous classes also neatly on the side of the screen, which in a separate scroll bar, which you could find all the previous classes, including this very last class where we explained l'shem yichud. Basically, what Alter Rebbe is saying, and what the Rebbe is saying, basically, it was kind of like a shift. We pointed out last week that it was a little bit of a shift of the spirit of the 41st chapter. Also, Rebbe begins at the Yesod, the foundation of all our Avodas Hashem, the service of a human being, particularly a Yid, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, must be based on Yira, on fear, awe. It's a melech. Hashem is a master. He's a king of all kings. He's looking over you as an individual. We emphasize this with Alter Rebbe, famous saying of the Alter Rebbe, writing of the Alter Rebbe, Hashem nitzov alav lechalor, it's kavedu mabit alav. He's looking over you. He cares what your next action is going to be, your next speech is going to be, your next thoughts are going to be. Again, on the negative, you're going to hold yourself back, not entertaining your mind with, as Hashem says, not to entertain your mind with, not to entertain your speech with, action with. And so too on the positive, that you're going to do everything what Hashem wants you to do. in action, in speech, and in thought. And Hashem is right, and as such, He's a king, which you're always in the presence of the king. That extracts a fear, awe, a reverence of this Melech Malchem Lachem. So the whole focus, and then he goes on to different levels of yira, of fear, and avodah, and so on. But the common, or the spirit of this message is it's about your personal relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're in the arena. Obviously, it's about your submission to Hashem, but it's one way or another about you in the presence of Hashem. Here, the Alter Rebbe speaks Ach Omnom, as it began last week or class before even that Hashem, and the Alter Rebbe says, no, you should never lose sight of the bigger picture, what this all means for God. Not only how it's just the knowledge that He wants it from you, and therefore you'll submit yourself to Him. So it's about your appreciation, one way or another, of your servitude to this grand King, King of all kings, Hashem. And it's not only about appreciation, but that's what's really happening. Hence, that's what you're focusing inevitably on. But the Alter Rebbe says, no, you have to as well focus on this. What is it for Him on the overall? Why did He create all this? Why did He do all this? What does Hashem have from creating a world, creating a people, giving them a Torah, mitzvahs, and in the end of the day, or we mentioned last week, that every part of creation ultimately contributes to this master plan of creation, which is Isava Kodesh Baruch Hu Elias Leidira B'Tachtenim. Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this very physical world, and this is why He created all this. And again, we mentioned this is what we proclaimed in the very beginning of the day, and for that matter, we mentioned that there's others. We noticed there's others who do this certain custom. People do it, say this l'shem yichud before they perform a mitzvah, before they learn Torah. And those who say in the beginning of the day, it's not excluding the significance or the connection of l'shem yichud to every mitzvah. It's just the custom is based on the idea that you start your day with l'shem yichud, but this would include all the mitzvahs that you perform, all the learning, the Torah that you learn. So, the what Alter Rebbe says, and this is what we proclaim in l'shem yichud kudshem brichu, that it's not only, or rather, I'm alluding, or I'm emphasizing, I'm focusing as well, what is it for Hashem? What does this all mean for Hashem? In other words, I'm taking myself away from my own focusing on myself, or even my submission, which is pretty much negating self, but it's about my submission to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I'm looking on the overall grander image. What is it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have pleasure, I'm just going to think about what is this is it for you, Hashem? What is it for you, Hashem? This is where we took important part of the class last week when he explained what is it for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What does it mean, Nisav HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lis Leidira B'Tachtenim? Hashem wanted a dwelling place in this physical domain, and how this is synonymous with the message of the Yichud Kuchubrichu Shchinte, the fusion, the synthesis, the harmony of the two forces, the two expressions, rather, of the way the Eibishter is Kuchubrichu for himself, the supreme, superior dimension with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way the Eibishter is for himself, by himself, which in terms of Chassidus is the Sovev Kol Almin energy, with the Shchinte, with the Memale Kol Almin energy, the way the Eibishter descends and deals with Asara Mamarot, as he speaks creation into being, creates all elements, all the worlds. By definition, this is a great contraction on Hashem's infinite power. And the point is that these two, through B'Shem Kol Yisrael, in other words, in the name, with the avodah of every single Yid, via keeping Hashem's mitzvahs, learning Hashem's Torah, and praying to Hashem, what he does is he meshes, he brings together these two energies. And that's what Hashem wants. That's what the purpose of creation was. So, Alter Rebbe begins, and again, you can see it on all the previous class we elaborated. We took quite some time to explain this l'shem yichud kuchubrichu shchinte. But Alter Rebbe says here that this kavanah should be on a constant basis and passionately in the heart of the Yid who serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to be a very special and unique Yid. In other words, like this. When you tell the Yid that it's about a constant expression of submissiveness to this Melech Malchem Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings. He's your master. You're a servant. You're a subject. And again, a very positive way, naturally. And it's about your fear and your awe and the reverence of Hashem. So this is something which even the average person, obviously the average person, someone who appreciates and understands the virtue of avdus, of servitude to this great Creator. But ultimately, it's something that person could focus on a constant basis and keep him going, and keep him moving, and keep him online with the Ratzon Hashem, with Hashem's desire. But to tell the Yid that it's not about you, it's about focusing, or not about focusing on yourself, even on your submission. But beyond that, to have on a constant basis, to focus that what is it in for Hashem, that Hashem has this plan of the Yichud Kodesh B'Richu Shchinte, and I am an individual as a particular ambassador, a particular emissary to implement this. It's wonderful. I could periodically tune into that, appreciate that. It would give me another pump of energy into Maravedas Hashem. But to have that on a constant basis, that the person should focus on a constant basis on that, what Hashem has with this, with what Hashem's objective is. What is it in it for Hashem? What does Hashem gain from this? It's about Hashem's pleasure, Hashem's delight, and that itself is kind of removing myself a bit from the picture, from the image, from the focus, because the L'Shem Yuchad ultimately is saying that it's not about you, it's about God. And a person should be able to be constantly focused with this, on this kavanah, or have this kavanah on a constant basis, this intention in the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be in the front and the center of his learning Torah and his doing mitzvahs. He has to be a very unique person, because in this case it's not only about his submissiveness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not only about his yira, his fear, which again that says that it's I'm in the arena, it's about I'm the center of the arena. Again, it's negating self, submitting myself, but at the end of the day, I'm the servant who's doing all my service to Hashem, to my master. But removing one's mind from that, or at least introducing this other kavanah that it's about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when Hashem has it, what Hashem gains from this, and Hashem's pleasure, and it's about Hashem's plan of the Yichud Kodesh B'Richu Shchinte, and that should be on a constant basis. And as Alter Rebbe says, "Belibe sheli b'chafetz be'emes," that I truly want that. In other words, it's altruistic. It's be'emes that you have to be a very unique Yid, and not all of us could fit that type of service. Not all of us are there. Not all of us are that passionate. We want to do what Hashem wants, and yes, periodically we tune in to the thought, what Hashem gains from this, why He created. At the end of the day, it's about His pleasure, not about my pleasure, not about even my submissiveness. It ought to be via my submissiveness, but it's not about my submission to Hashem. It's about Hashem's pleasure, it's Hashem's delight, Hashem's hana'ah, Hashem's tainug, and as such, what does it mean yet that we say on a constant basis, L'Shem Yichud Kodesh B'Richu? So again, we do this on a constant basis, for that matter, on a daily basis. But how could you ask the Yid, or could you establish this rather as the standard avodah of the Yid, that he is meant to be standing on this level, and on a constant basis he's focused on Hashem's pleasure, Hashem's delight, as opposed to his servitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his avodah, his yira, his awe, his fear? So the Alter Rebbe says, you're right, that not everybody is on that level, overtly though, the Alter Rebbe says. But he'll come back and he'll say, and again we orally mentioned this last week as well, that but covertly, or even more than that, in the innate love a Yid has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he has that fixed in as well. And and therefore, even though he does not overtly passionate about it, but because the Alter Rebbe said, because this is part of the makeup of the relationship of the Yid with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is Hashem's desire, and every Yid has a part of a God within him, and as such, he has, this is the associated with, synonymous with the Ahava Tivis, that innate and inherent love the Yid has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hence, this whole experience is somewhere there, in the heart of the Yid, that the heart, deep in the heart of the Yid has no, the Yid is part of this experience. The Yid becomes part of this experience of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with this very kavanah. Even though on the surface, in other words, it's not terribly manifest by this Yid, he that is not necessarily passionate about this l'shem yichud, because not necessarily has that Abba Rabba Hashem, that very great love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the Alter Rebbe concludes that you have it, inherently you have that love, and therefore inherently, and that love ultimately is associated with the focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that it's about you and not about me accordingly. And what Alter Rebbe is going to say over here, this Alter Rebbe puts it into these words over here. It says, this whole thought, rather, let's just point out over here that this whole thought is very much synonymous with the Alter Rebbe's, the Perek Yud Ches in Tanya, which the Alter Rebbe starts introducing, that our Avodas Hashem, our excitement about God, our service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, doesn't begin from us, our efforts, our decision, our realization of Hashem as a king of all kings. Therefore, I need to serve him. I want to serve him. I want to submit myself to him. I want to do only what he says. I want to stay away from everything what he doesn't say. The Alter Rebbe, the 18th chapter begins that no, it begins much deeper, from a deeper area than that. It's because you have a part of God within you. Hence, you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your love is so deep. It's inherent. It's innate. And because you have that neshama, as such, consequently, you want to do everything that Hashem wants for you to do, and stay away from everything Hashem does not want you to do. And then you build on that. Obviously, you bring in your contribution, your focused or your conscious contribution to this avodah. But it begins from a much deeper area within yourself, the subconscious, or even deeper than that. Again, it's an innate and inherent love that it has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is again a revolutionary point with Alter Rebbe has. For example, which is important pointing out that the Rebbe, the whole Tanya, again, one of the revolutions, and you can call it definitely revolutionary points of the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, is that it's not about finding Yiras Hashem, studying about or contemplating in the reality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, I will extract a fear, love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and all these different levels of love and Yira, which is mentioned even in the Gemara and in Kabbalah and so on. It doesn't begin from me. It begins because there's a whole setup in my system which is geared and innately attractive to that, innately inclined to that, innately gravitates to that. And really, my avodas, I shouldn't disturb that. Obviously, I have to bring in my conscious focus on all these ideas to bring the minakoach el hapoel minahelam el agili, from a state of potential to a state of actuality, from a state of hiddenness to a state of manifestation, and it works together. My efforts with this, which is set up within my system as a yid, and both of them, the person becomes a true Oved Hashem, because it's important also the person should have this overt, passionate excitement, not only that inherent inclination to what is good, godly, divine, etc., but the fact that it begins of who I am sets a total different tone in my whole relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. as like as ridiculously like to say, a person that could study the whole world of the significance of eating as an example of eating, how important it is to eat, and this particular diet and that particular diet, and what contributes to my health more or less, and so on. Or the whole idea of eating, that the idea that the person studies the whole manner of eating, that when you take a bite into the piece of bread, that connects the soul to your body, that the person should not become weak and expire and so on. But that's not why, when you see a person after half a day, especially when he exerted himself that half a day and sits down to lunch, that's not why he's taking a bite into that sandwich. He's taking a bite into the sandwich primarily because the body is inclined to eat. You have a 4 or 2-year-old, or even a 1-year-old. They don't know anything about what food does in its connecting body and soul, spirit and matter. It's just, this is who you are. Your makeup, your bodily makeup is that after a few hours, you're inclined to sit down to eat. On top of that, you obviously put your 2 cents into it. And again, we're not talking about if it's a good thing or not a good thing. You should try to make the food, have the food tasty and appreciate it, and take delight from that bite, for example. Again, we're not talking about good, no good, just talking about as an example. It doesn't begin from the appreciation of eating the way it's in your mind on the surface. It begins from a much deeper area with the mechanism, with the establishment of the body and its inclinations and what it gravitates to. Similarly, the whole idea what Alter Rebbe and Tanya focused on, and you could even say brought to light, that all these different levels, even great important levels which exist in the person's service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Avarabo, Yira, and so on, which sometimes we can think, how can we attain these important levels? I'm just a simple Yid. I hope I can get through the day without violating in action, speech, namely in thoughts. Chas v'sholom, not to violate Hashem's mitzvahs, and then to do everything what Hashem wants me to do, and then you start talking about Abba, Rabba, and Yira Ilah, and Yira Tata, and even Abba Zuta, and Abba Metanugim, and Abba Salem, and all these different levels. Like, what are you talking about? But Alter Rebbe makes it clear that it's not that you're here and you gotta obtain all these important levels which seem to be sky high and distant from you. To the contrary, all these levels are embedded in you. They're shelved. They're all part of who you are, because it's all about the enhancement in the connection to Hashem, and you have the part of God within you. So all these levels inherently exist in you. And it's about letting them go, letting them come out from a state of concealment or a state of hiddenness, a state of obscurity, to a state of revelation, manifestation. Now that's not saying that it's easy. It's not particularly easy, but you know that the starting point is very different. In other words, you have that solid starting point from which you could work on to extract all these levels. First of all, knowing that it's there. It's who you are. It's not only there, it's who you are. And it's about bringing it, again, for me, from a state of potential to a state of actuality. And obviously there you have to bring in your conscious mind, which Hashem wants us to serve of Him with our conscious mind. Therefore He gave us these rich faculties, our thought, or our intellect, our heart, and so on. And He says, work it out together. Your conscious focus on me and my Torah and my mitzvahs, but building on and knowing that it begins from a very deep, much deeper point of your ava tivis, of your natural innate love and connection and bond and kli with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because this is who you really are. So the starting point is explosive, if you will, because it's really who you are. You don't even have to reach that place. This is who the Yid is. And this is where Alter Rebbe begins. He says, Afshali is Kabbalah. So again, this is an overall, again an observation of the Alter Rebbe's. You find this time and again in the Alter Rebbe in these chapters, but he began this whole idea in Perik Yud Ches. You see how he begins, really like, here I'm going to tell you what one of the most important displays of Tanya, or the support messages rather of my Tanya is displayed over here, starting from this Perek Yud Ches. And again, every area in Tanya is another, revolutionary type of art of the Alter Rebbe of telling us, guiding us so perfectly in our Avodas Hashem, as Tanya is the perfect manual to our true Avodas Hashem. And every page is a chidush. The whole idea of the Beinani, which Alter Rebbe elaborates from the very first chapter, from the beginning rather, till the end of Perek Yud Gimel Yud Daled, and then Tezvav, it's a particularly unique message. Every Perek is another revolutionary message, but Yud Ches is kind of saying, and now I'm going to tell you that it's not something which begins with you, it's something which who you are, what you have innately. And here the Alter Rebbe introduces this idea as well. That even this kavanah, that it should be true, and again, altruistic in your heart, that you should truly desire this oneness, the supreme oneness, which is again the message of L'Shem Yichud Kucher B'richu, Tzarich Li, is believed. And just to note, by the way, when we say Shechina, it's not only, like we mentioned last week, everything within creation. Very important. I don't know they adequately explain this detail as well. It's not only the synthesis of the Shechina associated with the Asar Mamores, which is again the inferior expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which creates Eilamas, especially Eilam Asiyah, and particularly this Eilam Asiyah Gashmi, this physical world. The man who is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, somewhat, one way or another, is also a product of the Shechina. So just by serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not only by taking the matters of Elam Hazeh and elevating them and introducing them to the energy of Kucher B'richu, which is again the unity of Kucher B'richu Shechinte, but my mere serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu also establishes this Yichud Kucher B'richu Shechinte, because I am part of the Shechina energy. My body, for sure. My Nefesh Bahamis, definitely. The Nefesh Chayunis, and this vitalizes my body. But even my Nefesh Elikis, the truth's a part of God, more the save of Kol Alman experience, but that Nefesh Elikis also has that Shechina dimension. For the mere fact that this is a part of God which enters and into my goof, my nefesh bahamis, my body, my animal soul, my conscious mind as a human being, which is a product of the Asar Mamaris. So it also has that Shechina dimension. It's Shochenet, the Mislabeches, it's the inferior, so one way or another, part of the Neshama, or the whole makeup of the Neshama, which has the famous five levels, and we spoke about it in the past, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai, Yechida. And then beyond that, the core of the Neshama, which is beyond the five names, just parenthetically note, it's Chamisha Shemas Nikru La. It's given five names. There's the law, the core essence of the neshama, which the deeper parts of the neshama, obviously, that's more associated with the Kucher B'richu dimension, but the significant majority of the function of the neshama is the Shechina dimension of the neshama, which that's the part of the neshama which enters shachen umitlabesh into my goof, my nefesh bahamis, as a human being, body and animal soul as a human being. So true, it's a part of God, but it's the Shechina that as well has that Shechina component. Similar, ultimately, to this which is produced by the Asar Mamaris itself, obviously very distinct and different. This is still a godly reality, but as it says in numerous Sfarim, this is a part of the Beire becomes a Nivra, which is again that part of the Neshama which is associated with the Shechina dimension, because it's Shochen into Mitlabesh, as it would enclose in a body, and in the experience of the human being. So therefore, when I just by me mere doing the mitzvah, already fuses the two energies of Kucher B'richu Shechinte. The Kucher B'richu, which is again part of the Torah, the Anechi Hashem Alekecha, part of the mitzvah that I'm performing, the Torah that I'm learning, and I'm just myself who is performing this and learning this Torah. That itself, right there, you have that the fusion of Kucher B'richu and Shechinte. Even though last week we pointed out that the fusion of Kucher B'richu and Shechinte extends itself to this which I perform the mitzvah with. If it's the esrog, it's the lulav, it's the parchment of the tefillin, which comes from the skin of the animal, or the ink, which comes from the tree, and so on. So that itself also fuses and together with the Kucher B'richu energy. But here he's really, in a sense, he's focusing on the Shchinte, the way, just the fact that the Yid serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu, that he has the Shechina dimension with him, and he connects with a Kudsha Brichu dimension, which is Hashem's Holy Torah, which is associated with the Kudsha Brichu, Kodesh, holy, transcendent, and so to Hashem's holy mitzvahs. So the Rebbe says this Yichud, again back to what we're saying over here, this has to be believe it. This would be that this would be in someone's heart. There's such a great passionate love to Kodesh Baruch Hu. That it's about Hashem, not about me. It's about bringing satisfaction to Hashem. Not only about quenching my own thirst, that I want to be close to Hashem. I want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but and as opposed to quenching my own thirst, it's about focusing solely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about bringing satisfaction to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, delight to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he says that this would be similar to Kibrod Ishtaru Basar Avui Ve'imei Derachim Lein Yatem Megamei V'nafshei. And this is similar to a child, that you find many times that a child is so devoted to his parents. Not only he loves them in regular times, and he do everything for them in the regular times, but at times he's ready to give his life up in order to save his parents. If it's a question of life or death, for example, of his own parents, and his own life is compromised, his own life is on the line, he would compromise with his own life just to save his parents. And he doesn't go into any cheshbonot, he doesn't go into any rational calculations. It was older, family, and so on. There's no calculations in the equation at all, because he loves his parents so much, so he'll give his life over. He's ready to expire just to save his parents. This is obviously a unique child. So you're going to say every child has that similar love to his parents, but not necessarily will every child execute that love in such a manner that he's ready to expire just as parents should be walking the face of the earth. In other words, it's not a cheshbon, a calculation which he makes, that maybe my parents are more important to society more than I am. There's nothing of that. Perhaps if you make a calculation, you would say, you know what, I'm younger, family, and whatever person could introduce based on tam vadas, on a rational build-up. Why make sense? Maybe he should be walking the face of the earth. But there's no cheshbonot over here. Nothing comes, the calculation rather doesn't come even into the equation over here. He has such a love for his parents, and the love is so strong and so passionate that there is no calculation. My parents' life is on line, I will go save them, even though it means that I'm compromising on my own security and my own safety to the extent that he's ready to expire for the sake of his parents. And that's very unique. And in a sense, this is very similar to the tell the Yid that you don't focus, it's not about focusing on yourself. It's about just bringing a nachas ruach, satisfaction to your Father in heaven, which is again embedded in the spirit, in the message of L'Shem Yichud Kudsha Brichu, that it's not about me, it's about you, Hashem, it's about your unity, it's about your objective of the unity of Kudsha Brichu and Shchinte. So he says, nonetheless, and this is very unique, as we said before, not every Yid is standing on that level. Like he says again, he brings this mashal, like the Alter Rebbe brought this is a quote. This is a quote from the Rai Mehemra, which the Alter Rebbe brought before. So the Alter Rebbe says, Mikol Makom, nonetheless, even you're not holding there, nonetheless, try to acquaint yourself with his kavanah. Try to accustom yourself with his kavanah. Even though you don't find it being true, you don't find it being altruistic, that this is what you would desire with all your heart, a bit of it, inherently you want this, and again the Alter Rebbe says truly, yes, altruistically. Why? Because of the natural, innate love which exists in the heart of every single Yid. Last is called Mashurat in Elyon Baruch Hu, to do everything which is associated with the supreme desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every Yid, because of his neshama, wants to do what Hashem desires. He is our Father. He is, and hence we are innately connected to Him, and therefore we want to do everything which pleases Him. And if He has a ratzin, if He has a desire, we are ready to do whatever his supreme desire, whatever is his supreme desire. And the Yichud Zeh, and this, ultimately, this one is, in the end of the day, it's not something that we figured out or we think it's a good idea to bring together these two energies of Kutcher B'richu Shchinte. It's now not our initiative. It's not something that we established, hence we would appreciate. It's a great idea. What a wonderful idea is to bring these two energies together. That in the Shchinte should be felt the Kutcher B'richu. It's fantastic. It's extraordinary. This is the Malad Deis Hashem. This is the pinnacle of everything which, or the greatest appreciation which one could have, that all his service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu would lead to the sensation of the energy of Kutcher B'richu. That's the Malad as Deis Hashem, when Mashiach will come, as Deis Hashem. Hashem is that name which Hashem is that name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is synonymous with Seviv Kolalna, with this Kutcher B'richu. The world will be full with this das. Again, which das? The knowledge of the level of Hashem, of Kutcher B'richu. So it's wonderful. And this, again, it's messianic, and it's good, and it's exciting that we'd be able to literally identify God, identify the divine. V'ro kol basa yachtav, like the pasuk says in Yeshaya. And ayin b'ayin yiru, that the eye of the human being will be able to see. And again, also there is not Elokim, which is synonymous with Shechina, but ayin b'ayin yiru, again it says also the Shem Hashem. V'ro kol basa yachtav, even the flesh could experience this great revelation of the inner workings or the inner energy of Hashem, which is the level of Kutcher B'richu. It's wonderful, but it's not something which begins with us and our appreciation and excitement to this revelation. It's Hashem wants this yichud. It's Hashem's desire, just like Hashem tells us, I want you to put on tefillin. The Yid is gravitated by nature to put on tefillin, to do what Hashem wants, to fast on Yom Kippur, to identify with Shabbos, to sit by the Seder. This is who He is. Similarly, Hashem is the one who wants, who desires. It's also Ratzon Ha'elyon. It says that Hashem's supreme Ratzin. Again, someone could find nobility in putting on tefillin in his own. Oh, how beautiful to commemorate the matzah that the Jewish people ate when they left Egypt. But that's not why we eat matzah. We eat matzah because Hashem tells us to eat matzah. And because it's Ratzon Ha'elyon, it's Hashem's desire. And we have an neshama which tells us that we are innately connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore we gravitate to do what Hashem wants. And similarly, this whole yichud is not just a noble idea which we establish, but this is Ratzon Ha'elyon. This is what Hashem wants. Hashem desires the yichud Kutcher B'richu Shchinte. And therefore, because Hashem desires it, as such, this becomes our desire. Become desire as the Yid. He says, just like the Yid, because of this Abba Tivus, the innate love of Yid has to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore he's ready to do everything what is Ratzon Ha'elyon, everything what Hashem desires. This Yichud is the true desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as he goes on, with this we'll conclude, which is this Yichud Ha'elyon Shabbat Tzilus, this unity in the world of Atzilus, which again, that's where the main expressions of these two levels of energy energies within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the Shechina attributed to Malchus Datzilus. We explained this in the past, and then beyond that, that's more the Kutcher B'richu energy, and that unity is accomplished through the Yid who does HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs. Through the Yid down here in this world, which he has the component of Shechina, starting from his body and animal soul. In other words, the soul which vitalizes the body. And even the neshama which invests in the body is also part of that Shechina experience. Then he has the Torah, the mitzvahs, which is, by definition, the Kutcher B'richu energy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when he serves HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he brings the two together on all levels, on its original state and level. in the world of Atzilus, where primarily you have these two energies, the Kutchubrichu energy and then the Malchus, which is associated Malchus Kol Olamim, the energy which is associated with the Shechina, Shochenet Umitlabeshes, and is invests and encloses itself in the inferior. Through the unity of the godly soul, and its coming together in inclusion in the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is invested in Teda Mitzvah, Sheisekes Bahen, which it gets involved in, which again, the Teda Mitzvah is the Kutchubrichu energy, and they become truly one. Through your actual occupation, learning Teda down here in this world, and doing Hashem's mitzvahs down here in this world, through this, the source of Teda mitzvahs, which is again the Kutchubrichu energy, in Mikar Nefesh Elikis, with the source of your godly soul, again, which your godly soul is making the decision and performing and forwarding the everything about you, in other words, your body and your Nefesh HaChayunis to actually do the mitzvah. So it's the Nefesh Elikis in function. So at that time, simultaneously, the source of your Nefesh Elikis, which is the Malchus dimension, the Shechina dimension, which is called Shechina, which is associated with Memale Kol Almin, which is this energy which invests, which is Memale, fills and invests, which is again synonymous with the Shechina, becomes one of the highest levels till its original source and then root, which is the Kutchubrichu and Shechinte, the way it's in Atzilus, which is Memala Kol Almin, and the level of Seviv Kol Almin, as we explained many times, the Seviv Kol Almin dimension of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Kutchubrichu dimension within HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they become one on those the levels and the highest levels, with which is in Atzilus. Through my performance of Teda mitzvahs down here in this world, again, the Teda mitzvahs is the Seviv Kol Almin, the Kutchubrichu dimension, me as a human being, including my neshama, this neshama which invests in the body, which is leading this whole performance of Teda mitzvahs, and which is the Shechina dimension, is right now with its engagement in the learning Teda and doing mitzvahs. So I have these two energies come together and are united. And this unity is the Ratzon Ha'elyon. It's again, it's Hashem's desire. Hence, by definition, and by the definition of who I am as a Yid, from the perspective of my neshama, from the perspective of my innate love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I am driven to do so, and I'm driven to have this yichud implemented, and as such, inevitably focused on, even though on the surface, and not necessarily I'm that passionate about it. So firstly, the Alter Rebbe says, try to accustom yourself, but besides accustoming yourself on the surface and with your conscious mind, more so, you should know that it already begins of who you are because you have a neshama, and the neshama is innately inclined to do whatever Hashem wants, and this whole yichud is Ratzon Ha'elyon. This is exactly what Hashem wants. Hence, the starting point is of who you are. Now, bring it min ha'helem el ha'gilui, from a state of concealment, and try to become truly passionate about it, and try to stay focused on it, so that you should also remember, again, on a constant basis, Yid is able to extract within him this whole appreciation of this yichud, and even though it means that focusing on the Tainug Borei, the pleasure of Hashem, as opposed to focusing on myself, even submitting myself, which is the message of the very first part of this Perek Mem Aleph.